of introducing our program today. Common law, common values, common rights, common law principles for the 21st century. I have to begin by telling you that this day, this program, these ideas came from a conversation that Lord Peter Goldsmith and I had 4 years ago. Tragically enough for me, the government has called Lord Goldsmith to Brussels today, and so he cannot join me in seeing this wonderful assembly. So let me tell you about our conversation. When the Bar and the Law Society were kind enough to invite the American Bar Association to come back again, as we have since the 20s, about every 15 years, to celebrate our common ideals as lawyers and judges and to try and re-articulate them in every age, Peter and I were determined that in addition to what we knew would be a wonderful personal time for everyone in attendance, that there would be a kind of lasting intellectual product from this meeting. And at the time we were talking, as today, the difficulties of emerging democracies all over the world in figuring out what it was in a legal system, in a rule of law, in the courtrooms and in the legislatures, that really allowed a democracy to flourish. Those questions were on the front of everyone's minds who worries about peace in our human society. What we hoped was that there might be some way to articulate those key principles of the common law that have stood our two nations in such good stead for so long. Key principles that emerging democracies might find useful in having their conversations about how it was that you took a people, sometimes from a history of war and strife, sometimes from incredible poverty and difficulty, and put them together into a nation that valued human freedom and that understood that the kind of cooperation that had to happen to make a nation work was helped along immeasurably with the architects of our democracies, the judges and the lawyers. And so we came up with the idea of having a 3-part program. None of it would be happening today without some institutions that I want to thank first. First, I want to thank the American Bar Retirement Association and State Street Bank, who provided the funds to allow us to give you the wonderful materials that we've given you today, and the funds that allowed the most distinguished committee I shall ever serve on to meet twice, and who gave us the ability to move into a new century by meeting 2 other times in video conference. I am very grateful to them. I'm grateful to the West Group, to Howard Zaks and Kim Woodwick, who is here today, to Sarah Beth Pate, our editor, for agreeing as a public service to publish a wonderful book that you'll hear a little more about later, that will give us an ability, I think, to communicate with the broad English-speaking public the most wonderful ideas, and some controversial ideas as well, about the common law. I want to thank also 2 very famous people and well known to all of you, Lord Steyn, Lord Johann Steyn, and Justice Anthony Kennedy, who not only participated in our discussion, raising the level of it, of course, immeasurably, but allowed us to meet first in the halls of the United States Supreme Court and then in the House of Lords, something this New Mexico lawyer never expected to participate in. The venue in and of itself, with all of the conversations of the eons of people that had gone before us, the lawyers, the judges, the people worrying about what the law really meant, brought us all to a very fine point to begin the discussion. So here were these 3 parts that we want to share with you today. First, we wanted to have a conversation about the common law and what it meant, not in the past, but what it meant in this new century in which we have not only emerging nations, but a kind of emerging globe in which suddenly national boundaries have very little meaning because we all live in a world which we've learned to call cyberspace. We wanted to come up with some principles, as I said, and the committee, working very hard, has in your materials 12 principles that we feel are indispensable principles for a democracy and for a legal system that deserves the meaning of the common law. And last, we wanted to have a book so that people who were not here, and especially people who are not lawyers, could read the kinds of discussions that we know are so important to do what the common law has always done, and that is combine, on the one hand, immutable principles, and on the other hand, an understanding of our time, and the need to have the law encompass both those principles and those constant changes that make the common law a kind of vibrant, living document that many other legal systems have failed to have. So we begin today with the conversation. And let me introduce and say thank you to now Robert Stein, who is the executive director of the American Bar Association, but who truly, through his 15 years as dean of the University of Minnesota Law School, honed the kind of skills that were necessary to bring 48 authors in on time.
Thank you very much, Roberta.